All praises, honor, and glory to Yahweh, which is the name of the Heavenly Father, in the name of His only begotten Son, Yahweh Shai, who the world ignorantly calls Jesus Christ, in the name of the Holy Spirit, which is the Rakakwadash, and that's all in the Paleo Hebrew tongue. This is the brother Sagala coming once again with another video. And I want to kind of do this one on the music industry as in relation to this new world order and this new age agenda that has been pushed that entraps our peoples. Okay, so I want to get into, this is more so about Lucifer, which is the god of this world, and we'll get into that verse, which is in Matthew, the book of Matthew, in which the so-called devil, he was tempting the Lord for 40 days, the Lord Yahushua. And he tempted him for 40 days. And he basically said, hey, if you bow down to me, I will give you everything that you see. Why? Because the devil is the so-called god of this world. Now, I'm going to go into this article about Lucy's trust. Now, let's get a little bit of history on this. And when we're talking about Lucy, we're talking about Lucifer. Okay? Because a lot of people are under this misnomer or this false analysis that Lucy is Lucifer, or that Lucifer is Satan, when Lucifer is really the Illuminati that follow the satanic agenda. Okay, so let's look into this Lucy's Trust. Just reading this article. The history on the Lucy's Trust was established by Alice and Foster Bailey as a vehicle to foster recognition of the universal spiritual principles at the heart of all work to build right relations. The trust was incorporated in the state of New Jersey on April 5th, 1922. A separate limited company, Lucy's Trust Limited, Ltd., was established as an educational charity and incorporated in the United Kingdom in 1935. And in 1951, Lucy's Trust was established as a legal entity in Switzerland with an office in Geneva. A publishing company, initially named Lucifer Publishing Company, was established by Alice and Foster Bailey in the state of New Jersey, United States, in May 1922 to publish the book Initiation, Human and Solar. The ancient myth of Lucifer refers to the angel who brought light to the world, and it is assumed that the name was applied to the publishing company in honor of a journal which had been edited for a number of years by Theosophical founder H.P. Blavatsky, which the H.P. is stands for Helena P. Blavatsky. It soon became clear to the Baileys that some Christian groups have traditionally mistakenly identified Lucifer with Satan, and for this reason, the company's name was changed in 1924 to Lucy's Publishing Company. The arcane school started in 1923. World Goodwill was established in 1932 and Triangles in 1937. So we still have the Goodwill, in which is a secondhand store. But that's part of the World Goodwill, in which is one of these sister companies, or it's under this Lucy's Trust. Okay, it's under this Lucy's Trust. And then we have something that's called Triangles, which was established in 1937. And if you understand, there's something called the Trilateral Commission, and we could look up Trilateral Commission, but it's more so for it's like a part of the UN. Okay, it goes into economic, or it goes into policy on a universal standpoint, or a global standpoint, might I say. So I'm going to continue on. Over the years, headquarters offices in New York, London, and Geneva have moved locations a number of times. The New York office is located in a building overlooking the United Nations. In London, the office is close to Trafalgar Square in one of the city's most architecturally distinctive buildings, Whitehall Court. And after many years in a building close to the United Nations, the Geneva headquarters is now located on Rue Stand in the business district close to the lake. Okay, so this Lucifer publishing company, this was more so sent out to get all of this new age philosophy pushed out into the minds of you so-called Americans and into the minds of the peoples of the world. And that's where you get these so-called these new age religions such as witchcraft, which is a Wiccan, this Wiccan religion that you see a lot of people going to. These other religions such as voodoo, has been popularized through these publications, and not only through book publications, but through these other these other offspring, I want to say companies or entities that's under this trust. All right, in which I want to get to the music industry part of that, because when we talking about publications, music has to be published, and we talking about the turn of the music and the turn of popular culture. And even when you get that, we have certain let's get it. I Love Lucy. I Love Lucy. When did I Love Lucy come out? Let's look up that. And a lot of people's not going to realize or recognize this, but this was an old television show. And I guess it came out around the 1940s, 1950. Says the first episode was in October the 15th, 1951. So this whole Lucy's Trust and all of this new age doctrine, this was being spread around in the world, and we could see how it hit the popular culture around 1951, because anytime you hear Lucy being stated, in popular culture, whatever the case be, by these lesser known or these lesser initiates or these lesser illuminaries, because we know that Lucifer is talking about the Illuminati, in which the Illuminati is the so-called Rothschilds, the Rockefellers. We talking about the 1% of the world, these elite banking families. Now everybody else that is not connected through nepotism, they are just gatekeepers and hirelings. So you have agents that is working to push this agenda, okay, to this new age agenda, to get people to deceitfully stop worshiping God, but and worship Satan, okay, and worship themselves as God, which is a form of Satanism. So let's get to Isaiah the 14th, where it actually states Lucifer, Isaiah 14. And this is the only place in the Bible where it ever says Lucifer. So let's get a little edification on that. So let's start at verse 11. This is Isaiah chapter 14, verse 11. Thy pomp is brought down to the grave, and the noise of thy viols. The worm is spread under thee, and the worms cover thee. Why? Because this place is rotting. And whenever you start having worms, and that signifies decay. And we see the infrastructure of America is breaking down, the moral code. You know how America was supposedly built on a Christian foundation. You see the deterioration of all of that, and is going into these ideals that has been pushed through uh these instruments, in which we're talking about legal instruments, as far as businesses and contracts. I'm talking all of these excuse me. Okay, we talking about all of these ideals being pushed to the people. Verse 11, thy pomp is brought down to the grave. And what is pomp? We talking about arrogance. Okay, thy pomp is brought down to the grave. And the noise of thy viols. What is viols? They're talking about the violins. We talking about the music industry. The worm is spread under thee, and the worms cover thee. How art thou fallen from heaven, O Lucifer, son of the morning? How art thou cut down to the ground, which didst weaken the nations? Okay, and we read into this Lucy's trust, and this is established not only in America, but is established in a few countries such as Switzerland and London, the United Kingdom. For thou hast said in thine heart, I will ascend into heaven. And we see with these their aeronautics, NASA, and all of these other countries, how they have the space wars. I will exalt my throne above the stars of God. I will also sit upon the mount of the congregation in the sides of the north. And what have they done? They have taken the true holy people's holy land, and they have taken it for themselves. And now they are in what they call the nation state of Israel, claiming to be Israelites. And they have overtaken the saints. And you can read that in Revelation, the 13th chapter. Okay, because who are the saints? The saints are the Negroes, Latinos, Native Americans, and all of the other people that actually wholeheartedly believe in this gospel. Okay, that made, yet thou shalt be brought down to hell, to the sides of the pit. They that see thee shall narrowly look upon thee and consider thee, saying, is this the man that made the earth to tremble, that did shake kingdoms? So the whole point is Lucifer is not Satan, in which is stated on the Lucy's Trust website. But Lucifer is the actual Illuminati family. We talking about the so-called elite, okay? And there's a head over that family that's calling the shots. Now let's look up what a trust fund is. Let's look up a trust fund definition. And we still talking about the publications, because what do you have in music? Not only in publications of books, in which it already stated that they had a publication company called Lucifer's Publishing Company. But guess what? That went into the music also, and that's why you heard rock and roll started getting really demonic. Rock and roll started changing. The music in general started changing, and then after they changed the rock and roll, you had a so-called hip hop era, and then you used to hear back in the day the so-called hip hop music was uplifting and eye-opening to the people. They had so-called songs like "Fight the Powers That Be," songs to telling you to love yourself. But now you got songs to tell you to hate yourself, hate your women, hate your brother. So let's look up trust. A trust. A trust is a legal relationship in which the holder of a right gives it to another person or entity who must keep and use it solely for another's benefit. A trust is a legal relationship in which the holder of a right gives it to another person or entity who must keep and use it solely for another's benefit. In Anglo-American common law, the party who entrusts the right is known as the settlor. The party to whom the right is entrusted is known as the trustee. The party for whose benefit the property is entrusted is known as the beneficiary. The entrusted property itself is known as the corpus or trust party. With the strategic and legal use of trusts, individuals can ensure that their children and grandchildren or chosen beneficiaries are able to benefit completely from the inheritance they want them to receive. Okay, so we talking about we talking about a trust fund, and we talking about nepotism. We talking about power through real estate, because for the most part, when you hold a trust, you're passing down not only monies, but you're passing down the rights to use, the rights and the use of property. And when with them already, with the so-called powers that be already being able to regulate and to dictate and having ownership of a lot of the resources, this is how they allocate resources to their to their children and to their children's children. Okay. And not only was this, I'm not saying Alice Bailey set this up, but she had help from so-called other initiates of the so-called Illuminati. And I believe this was how they infiltrated the music with all of this new age agenda. They used these people to push all of those ideals out there. There was another one I wanted to go to. Now let's go to this. Let's go to there. Let's go to there. Let's go to there. Now let's look this up. Busy Bone. Busy Bone talks about music industry. Okay, now, oh man, I probably don't want to speak about that one. All right, so this one is called Crazy Bone Exposes the Secret Meeting That Destroyed Our Generation. And this is talking about let's get it. Hold on one moment.
Years, I finally decided to tell the world what I witnessed in 1991, which I believe was one of the biggest turning points in popular music and ultimately American society. I have struggled for a long time weighing the pros and cons of making my story public, as I was reluctant to implicate the individuals who were present that day. So I've simply decided to leave out the names and all the details that may risk my personal well-being and that of those who were, like me, dragged into something they weren't ready for. Damn. Hold on, let me So we gonna tell the story. We gonna tell the story. We ain't scared. You know what I'm saying? What they gonna do? They after us, not just like look, that black man. So look. So he says, between the late 80s and early 90s, I was what you may call a decision maker with one of the more established companies in the music industry. I came to Europe in the early 80s and quickly established myself in the business. The industry was different back then, since technology and media weren't accessible to people like that, like they are today. The industry had more control over the public and had the means to influence them any way it wanted. Right. This may explain why in early 1991, I was invited to attend a closed-door meeting with a small group of business insiders to discuss rap music's new direction. Rap music's new direction.
Yeah.
Little did I know we would be asked to participate in one of the most unethical and destructive business practices ever seen.
Crazy.
So this was the meeting. The meeting was held at a private residence on the outskirts of Los Angeles. I remember about 25 to 30 people were being there.
Right.
Most of them familiar faces. Speaking of those I knew, we joked about the theme of the meeting, as many of us did not care for rap and failed to see the purpose of being invited to a private meeting to discuss the future of hip-hop.
Talk to him.
Among the attendees was a small group of unfamiliar faces who stayed to themselves and made no attempt to socialize beyond their circle. Based on their behavior and formal appearances, they didn't seem to be from our industry. Our casual chatter was interrupted when we were asked to sign the confidentiality agreement, preventing us from publicly discussing the information presented during the meeting. Needless to say, this intrigued, in some cases, disturbed many of us. The agreement was only a page long, but very clear on matters and consequences, which stated that violating the terms would result in job termination immediately. We asked several people what this meeting was about and the reason for such secrecy, but could not find anyone who had the answers for us. A few people refused to sign and walked out. Nobody stopped them. I was tempted to follow, but curiosity got the best of me.
That's right.
A man who was part of the unfamiliar group collected all the agreements from us. So now it's going to get to the good part because the meeting about to start.
Talk to him, G.
It says, quickly after the meeting began, hold on one second.
Get your popcorn, y'all.
Popcorn, get your pistol. No, for
real though.
Quickly after this meeting began, one of the industry colleagues, who shall remain nameless like everybody else, thanked us for attending. He then gave the floor to a man who only introduced himself by first name and gave no other details about his personal background. I think he was the owner of the residence, but that was never confirmed. He briefly praised all of us for the success we had achieved in our industries and congratulated us for being selected as part of this small group of decision makers. At this point, I began to feel slightly uncomfortable in the strangeness of this gathering. The subject quickly changed as the speaker went on to tell us that the respective companies we represented had invested in a very profitable industry, which could become even more rewarding with our active involvement. He explained that the companies we worked for had invested millions into the building of privately owned prisons, and that our positions of influence in the music industry would actually impact the profitability of these investments. Then he says, I remember many of us in the group immediately looking at each other in awe and confusion. At the same time, I didn't know what a private prison was, but I wasn't the only one. Sure enough, someone asked what these prisons were and what any of this had to do with music. We were told that these prisons were built by privately owned companies who received funding from the government based on the number of inmates. The more inmates, the more the government would pay these prisons. It was also made clear to us that since these prisons are privately owned, as they become publicly traded, we'd be able to buy shares. Most of us were taken back by this. Again, a couple of people asked what this had to do with us.
All right, I'm going to pause this video. I'm going to get to 2 Thessalonians chapter 2. I'm going to start at verse 3. I'm going to just read this out of the book, out of the Bible. Let no man deceive you by any means, for that day shall not come except there come a falling away first, and that man of sin be revealed, the son of perdition, who opposeth and exalteth himself above all that is called God, or that is worshipped, so that he as God sitteth in the temple of God, showing himself that he is God. And there's something called what's that word? What's the word? What's the word? There's a term for them actually taking all of the paintings and all of the images, and there's something called typification where they actually deface statues, because there used to be statues and images with so-called dark-skinned people that had the negroid facial features, so they would typify them. But there's another one also, another word that I'm looking for that's similar to that, but where they defile paintings, and that's what they have been doing, defiling paintings and placing new paintings out there. We're talking about Renaissance era paintings when the so-called white man came back into power, and that's how they introduced to you the white image of the so-called Jesus Christ character, and they gave that to you. But when you see all of the old paintings of the biblical characters and the saints, they were all dark-skinned images. And that word is right on the tip of my tongue, and I used it earlier, but now I just can't seem to remember it. But I'm going to go on. Verse 5, remember ye not that when I was yet with you, I told you these things, and now ye know what withholdeth, that he might be revealed in his time. For the mystery of iniquity doth already work. So this was a secret meeting. So this is a mysterious meeting that Crazy Bone is telling from a third party perspective, because he's telling something that was told to him from a music executive that went to this secret meeting and had to sign that non-disclosure agreement. So let me continue on. For the mystery of iniquity doth already work. Only he who now letteth will let until he be taken out of the way. And then shall that wicked be revealed, whom the Lord shall consume with the spirit of his mouth, and shall destroy with the brightness of his coming, even him whose coming is after the working of Satan. So just like how it's stated that Lucy and Lucifer is not Satan, but Lucifer is, just how it says in Ephesians, the 6th chapter, that there's these powers in these high places, okay? In this demonic, these powers and principalities that are in high places, okay? It says we wrestle not against flesh and blood. Why? Because these people have these demons running rampant through them, but they are flesh and blood, but they come after all of the power and working of Satan. How it's saying right here in verse 7, for the mystery of iniquity doth already work. Only he who now letteth will let until he be taken out of the way, and then shall that wicked be revealed, whom the Lord shall consume with the spirit of his mouth, and shall destroy with the brightness of his coming. I'm sorry, it was verse 9. Even him whose coming is after the working of Satan, with all power and signs and lying wonders, and with all deceivableness of unrighteousness in them that perish, because they receive not the love of the truth, that they might be saved. And for this cause God shall send them strong delusion. And you see a lot of this strong delusion being pushed in the music industry, okay? They're pushing lesbianism, homosexuality, and they're pushing it out there as if the Bible is not against these things, okay? Now I'm also going to gonna finish up in here, and since this actual music video is talking about uh the secret meeting to turn rap music, okay, to push these new ideas into the rap music, to do what? To get more funding and more stockhold into the private private prison industry, okay, to keep our people locked up, and to keep funding their system through slave labor. even him whose coming is after the working of Satan with all power and signs and lying wonders. Verse 10, 2 Thessalonians chapter 2, and with all deceivableness of unrighteousness in them that perish, because they receive not the love of the truth, that they might be saved. And for this case God shall send them strong delusion, that they should believe a lie, that they all might be damned who believe not the truth, but had pleasure in unrighteousness. But we are bound to give thanks always to God for you, brethren, beloved of the Lord, Yahweh Shem Yahushua, because God hath from the beginning chosen you to salvation through sanctification of the Spirit and belief of the truth. So if you have any belief in the truth, then the music is cool sometimes, but when you turn this music on and you hear too much of it, the spirit of this music should vex you. You should not want to be able to listen to this music and not get annoyed for long periods of time. Okay. So now let's go to, since he's talking about the prison industry, let's go to Revelations, the 2nd chapter, verse 10, because it's going to touch the point right here. It's going to hit a real good point. So let's go to it. Revelation chapter 2, verse 10. Fear none of those things which thou shalt suffer. Behold, the devil shall cast some of you into prison, that ye may be tried, and ye shall have tribulation 10 days. Be thou faithful unto death, and I will give thee a crown of life. He that hath an ear, let him hear what the Spirit saith unto the churches. He that overcometh shall not be hurt of the second death. Okay, and what is the second death? The coming day of the Lord, which is just another a world cataclysm, such as the flood in Noah's days, but in this time is going to be with fire, and this fire is going to torch Babylon. Okay, this whole system that we live under the thumb of right now here in America. Okay, and what's the point? That when it says here in verse 10 that the devil shall cast some of you into prison, it's not talking about the spiritual demon Satan, but rather Lucifer and his goons and his cohorts and his puppets. Okay, because when we talking about all of these companies and corporations and all of these institutions are set up to keep our people trapped and snared, okay, and hid in prison houses, and and under the thumb of their oppression. So it's talking about the devil. Yeah, it's talking about Lucifer, these the so-called Illuminati, because that's who's really behind and over all of these institutions. Get a little bit more of this.
At this point, my industry colleague who had first opened the meeting,
fair usage,
took the floor again and answered our questions. He told us that since our employees had become silent investors in this prison business, it was now in their interest to make sure that these prisons remain filled. Our job would be to help make this happen by making music which promote criminal behavior, rap being the music of choice. He assured us that this would be a great situation for us because rap music was becoming an increasingly profitable market.
And who do a lot of these rappers look up to, and who do they revere? They revere a known Satanist. Not even rappers, just these music industry people, period. Who do they revere? They revere a known Satanist named Aleister Crowley, which was, I believe, an understudy to Helena P. Blavatsky, which was associated with this Lucy's Trust. So we talking about Lucifer's publications also. So do the publicizing of music also go under the Lucifer's publication? Okay, when we talking about a parent company that have all of these little offspring companies, are they are they in the mix? Are they all connected?
For our companies, and as employees, we'd also be able to buy stocks in these prisons. Immediately, silence came over the room. You could have heard a pin drop. I remember looking around to make sure I wasn't dreaming and saw half of the people with dropped jaws. My daze was interrupted when someone shouted, "Is this a fucking joke?" At this point, things became chaotic.
Right.
Two of the men who were part of the unfamiliar group grabbed the man.
All right, that's it on that one. You know, he goes on to keep telling a story about how the guy got out of the music industry, but years later he was seeing how that whole plan had came together and started working. Okay, and this was probably like in the early 90s when he's telling this story about the guy seeing that the plan was actually working after he had got, or the executive was seeing how the plan was actually coming together and working after he left the music industry, because he was guilty, but he couldn't, for fear of being, getting a hit put out on him, he didn't say anything. So let's look up a couple other, the God of this world. I know it's in, I want to say it's in 1 Corinthians chapter 10, but let's look it up. The God of this world. The God of this world. I'm going to get this one in another precept. Oh, it's actually 2 Corinthians chapter 4, excuse me. 2 Corinthians chapter 4, verse 4. In whom, well, let's go to verse 3. Let's start at verse 1. 2 Corinthians chapter 4, verse 1. Therefore, seeing we have this ministry, as we have received mercy, we faint not, but have renounced the hidden things of dishonesty, not walking in craftiness. And just how we seen that video, the whole craftiness behind it. Not walking in craftiness, nor handling the word of God deceitfully, but by manifestation of the truth, commending ourselves to every man's conscience in the sight of God. But if our gospel be hid, it is hid to them that are lost, in whom the God of this world hath blinded the minds of them which believe not, lest the light of the glorious gospel of Christ, of who Hamashiach, okay, this is who the world ignorantly calls Christ. And I'm still searching for that word. It's not a typification, but it is. I'm still drawing a blank, but we're going to go on. Who is the image of Yahweh should shine unto them. But the whole point is who the God of this world have blinded the minds. And how are they blinding the minds? By pushing this whole wicked agenda out and having this, they say the so-called Satan and Lucifer is the prince of the power of the airwaves, okay? The prince of the power of the air. What is that? He has control over the airwaves. So that means he is able to push an agenda and control the media, okay? And what is he pushing? He's pushing craftiness and deceit. He's pushing all the workings and the tenets of Satan, in which Satan is just means adversary. And what are they adverse to? The law, statutes, and commandments of Yahweh and Yahushai, okay? So we're going to get to can't believe I don't know which one this is, but we'll look it up anyway. Being tempted of the devil. Being tempted by the devil, KJV. Also, I was watching this other video. I might make another video about it, about how this guy goes into the actual Lucy's Trust building, and he's looking at their books and whatever the case be. He went into their library, and he in their library is there's a book talking about how the Jesuits are connected to all of that, and that's that papal system, the Roman Catholic Church system, but we'll get into that another time, Lord willing. Yahweh Ratazah, okay? Let's go to Matthew chapter 4. Then Yahushua led up of the spirit into the wilderness to be tempted of the devil. And when he had fasted 40 days and 40 nights, he was afterward and hungered. And when the tempter came to him, he said, If thou be the Son of God, command that these stones be made bread. Verse 4, but he answered and said, It is written, man shall not live by bread alone, but by every word that proceedeth out of the mouth of God. And that's how they tempt these, their hirelings. They tempt them with bread, okay? They tempt them to push wickedness on the masses through these spells that they craft through these songs, okay? But the devil tempts them by bread, okay? And gets them into these contracts that makes them a perpetual slave, has them do these rituals to seal the deal, okay? Which a lot of these rituals are sexual right rituals in which they do a lot of homosexual activity, blood sacrifices, drawing these sigils where they can connect with spirit beings, okay? Or these demons. Then the devil verse 5. Then the devil taketh him up into the holy city and setteth him on a pinnacle of the temple and saith unto him, If thou be the Son of God, cast thyself down, for it is written, He shall give his angels charge concerning thee, and in their hands they shall bear thee up, lest at any time thou dash thy foot against a stone. Yahushua said unto him, It is written again, Thou shalt not tempt the Lord thy power. Again, the devil taketh him up into an exceeding high mountain, and showeth him all the kingdoms of the world and the glory of them, and saith unto him, All these things will I give thee, if thou wilt fall down and worship me. Okay, so just how we read in Corinthians, okay, 1 Corinthians chapter 4, I believe, how the God of this world, so who was the God of this world? Lucifer and the devil, okay? So, hopefully this was edifying. And with that, I want to give all praise to Yah Ba'Shem Yahushai, Ba'Shem Rakakwadash, and Shalom.